The new Avatar The Last Airbender series can be great. It can grow the Avatar brand and finally make it mainstream outside of nerd circles, but first it needs to prove its legitimacy. That it will be better than M. Night Shyamalan's disaster about a decade ago is almost certain, but that is a very low bar to clear. For the show to be a success, it needs to definitively prove that it can be as good as the original series, and it needs to prove that in its very first season. If it doesn't, it'll lose the interest of casual viewers, and it will likely also lose the interest of longtime, hardcore Avatar The Last Airbender fans. I don't think it's a stretch to say, as the show's first foray into live action in about a decade, the first season is the most important season of this show. The show needs to get a lot right as it adapts Book 1, Water, to live action. If it doesn't, the results won't be pretty. So, here are the top 10 things it needs to get right. This is Avatar Explained, adapting Book 1. Number 10, the first episode. The Boy in the Iceberg is far from my favorite episode of Avatar The Last Airbender. The nuances and complexities that make these characters so great have not been established yet. But the job of a first episode is not to mull over nuances and complexities. It is to decisively and definitively establish who these characters are and, on a basic level, what they want. The Boy in the Iceberg did this effectively, and the first episode of the new Netflix Avatar series needs to do it effectively as well. It needs to establish Zuko's desperation and his longing to capture the Avatar. It needs to establish Aang's reluctance to assume his Avatar duties, Katara's yearning to see the world and become a master waterbender, and Sokka's sexist grumpiness. However, it also has to do a few more things than the original show. The original show had basically no expectations, whereas this show is loaded with them. It has to prove that it can be as beautiful as the original show. It needs to prove that bending can be gorgeous and fluid. It needs to prove that it has everything long-term fans of the franchise adore, while also being new and innovative. When non-fans check out this show, it is going to be their first window into the world of Avatar. The show better make sure it's a good one. Number 9, Admiral Zhao. Of all Avatar's main villains, Admiral Zhao likely receives the least credit. He's not as instantly iconic as Azula, or as chill-inducing as Long Fang, and unlike Ozai, he does not have a toxic, abusive relationship with the most interesting character in the show. That character being, of course, Zuko. But Zhao is a fascinating character nonetheless. He's much more than just your standard mustache-twirling antagonist. When Zhao is introduced, Zuko's villainy somehow seems far less egregious. This doesn't make what Zuko is doing right, but he is suddenly and abruptly transformed into the underdog. He's desperate and lonely and confused, and he is capable of mercy, unlike Zhao. Zhao is sneering and arrogant. He has all the power in the world, but he just wants more. He's willing to do everything he can just to get an edge. This includes when he tries to burn Zuko after Zuko bests him in an Agni Kai. But Zhao is also a tragic figure. He's brought down by his pride and arrogance. As his old master Zhong points out in episode 116, The Deserter, Zhao has no restraint. Even after being promoted to the top of the Fire Nation military hierarchy, he's not satisfied. He yearns to be remembered in the history books, and his drive to achieve that end is so overwhelming that it leads him to try to kill the moon. I hope the show acknowledges the complexity of his character. Number 8, the moral ambiguity of the Avatar state. The Avatar state is not just a superpower to be activated in order to win a fight. That is what separates it from a lot of power-ups in fantasy art. The show provides a clear idea of what it is. It has its own mythology and history. The reason the Avatar is so strong when they are in the Avatar state is that they have all the power of the past Avatars with them. However, this is not purely a good thing. Aang does not have control over himself when he is in the Avatar state. It's a defense mechanism. It's designed to protect the Avatar from the threats challenging them. This is helpful, but the Avatar state ought to be used sparingly, or else the Avatar might find themselves doing things they don't want to do. There is something scary and foreboding about the Avatar state, and I hope that is acknowledged in the live-action reboot. True, the dark side of the Avatar state is not the focus of Season 1 as much as it is the focus of Seasons 2 and 3, but it's not like it's completely absent from Season 1. When Aang enters the Avatar state after discovering Gyatso's death, it's one of the most tense and haunting moments of the season. And then there's Aang destroying the Fire Nation fleet at the end of this season. It's a triumphant moment, but there's also something chilling and unsettling about it. While it evokes relief that Team Avatar has won, it doesn't exactly evoke fist-pumping joy. I hope the Netflix show understands that nuance. Number 7. The Sokka-Yue romance. Is it weird that I care about this romantic relationship more than I care about the one between Sokka and Suki? Sure, it plays into a lot of familiar tropes, but those tropes are familiar because they work. They've been used successfully for millennia. I would like to see this relationship expanded upon, and I would like to see the conversation in which Yue reveals that the Moon Spirit gave her life to be shifted earlier in the work, so there would be space between that conversation and when Yue sacrifices herself to give life back to the Moon Spirit. However, I am fine with any depiction of this relationship, so long as the Netflix show captures the ecstatic rush of it all, as well as the complicated feelings of guilt and doubt on Yue's side. She hates that she loves him as much as she does, as she is engaged to marry someone else, and her fiancé is a shallow, vapid git who is more concerned with getting in the chief's good graces than he is with Yue's feelings. And there's also one more thing from the original that ought to be included in the Netflix reboot. At the start of episode 118, The Waterbending Masters, Iroh is singing with his crew. Their song includes the lyric, "4 seasons, 4 loves." We don't get to hear all of it, but we get to hear enough to know it is a love song, so when it soundtracks the relationship between Sokka and Yue, it feels appropriate, and it continues to soundtrack their relationship for the rest of the season. It is a small detail that would be easy for the show to forget or pass over, but I hope it is included. It always means quite a bit to me every time I watch Avatar. Number 6. Jett's character. Like Zhao, Jett is a more complicated person than he is often given credit for. And like Zhao, it would be easy for the Netflix series to flatten him into the most shallow and uninteresting version of himself. Jett is not purely a villain. While he cares more about defeating the Fire Nation than defending the innocent, and he cares more about symbolic victories than actually impacting the structural power of the Fire Nation, and he has no intention of meaningfully building a broad coalition, like the one Team Avatar eventually builds, but his intentions are good. The Fire Nation killed his parents, and that event haunts him. He wants to strike back against them. That he is not wholly self-absorbed can be seen in his genuinely warm interactions with the other freedom fighters. One can easily see why he has accrued such a following. He helps those who can't get help any other way, and he's charming and charismatic. There is no length to which he will not go to achieve his mission, and this is both a positive and a negative. Even when he betrays Team Avatar, one can clearly see that he is more confused than outright malevolent. He's a lot like Zuko in that regard, which is why the two characters are paralleled in Season 2 when they are both trying to change for the better. Jett does not embark upon the road to change in Season 1, but Netflix needs to establish him in Season 1 as a character who is capable of change, and someone who can do good. The Netflix show should absolutely not make him a one-dimensional villain. Number 5. Aang and Zuko working together. While Episode 112, The Storm, parallels Aang and Zuko thematically, Episode 113, The Blue Spirit, is more important for the relationship between them. Dire circumstances force them to work together against Zhao. This is a stark change from every interaction they have hitherto had, and it will culminate in the Season 3 episode, The Firebending Masters, in which they both learn the truth about firebending and move fully beyond the darkness in their pasts, while also growing as people. They are a long way away from that in episode 113, The Blue Spirit, but it sets them down that road. The Netflix series must be able to convey the ambiguity of their interactions. Zuko does rescue Aang from Zhao under the guise of the Blue Spirit, that's a fact, but we're left slightly in the dark as to his intentions. If one asked him why he's doing this, he would say that he is doing this so he can capture Aang himself later. But the show leaves open the possibility that he genuinely likes working with Aang and would be open to joining him if circumstances were different. The two of them work well together, they complement each other's strengths brilliantly. There's enough potential in their relationship and enough ambiguity regarding Zuko's intentions that when Zuko shoots fire at Aang at the end of the episode, it feels genuinely disappointing, even though it really shouldn't.
Number 4. Aang's outburst in the Southern Air Temple. The Southern Air Temple is the first episode of the show I am fully comfortable calling great. The series premiere does a great job of establishing the characters and the setting, and the second episode is genuinely tense and exciting. But it is in this, the third episode of the show, that its dramatic capacities and thematic ambitions become clear. Katara spends the episode trying to hide from Aang the truth that the Fire Nation has been to the Southern Air Temple. The entire episode is laden with enough suspense to make Hitchcock proud. At the end of the episode, Aang discovers the truth, and as a result, he goes into the Avatar state. This is not the first time he has gone into this state, but it is the first time the Avatar state has been viewed not as a superpower, but as something genuinely scary and unsettling. It's one of the most harrowing moments in Season 1, but it ends on an optimistic note, as Sokka and Katara coax Aang out of the Avatar state by pledging they can be his family, and saying that they will always be there for him. It is the first time Team Avatar feels more like a team than just a collection of individuals gathered together for a specific purpose. It is an integral moment, and I hope that the Netflix Avatar doesn't undercut it. Number 3. Katara's dark side. While Katara's dark side is not as important here as it will become in later seasons, especially Season 3, it is important that it is introduced here. Katara without her dark side is not nearly as interesting of a character. This doesn't mean she would be an altogether uninteresting character without her dark side. Her struggle to be the mother of the group while also trying to relax and have fun is interesting, and her determination to keep the group together no matter what happens is admirable and inspiring. But without her dark side, she would be a little hard to take. She would be the member of the group who is right in every way, and that the show never bothers to seriously criticize. For that reason, I dearly hope that the Netflix reboot does not strip Katara of her dark side. Her flaws are not great because they make her more relatable, though they do. No, they're great because they're derived from the same parts of her psyche as a lot of her best qualities. When she steals the waterbending scroll, then practices with it by the river, this is presented as a mistake, as it endangers Team Avatar, but she does it because she hates that the pirates have stolen it from her culture, and because she is driven by a passionate desire to improve herself.
Number 2. Aang burning Katara. Aang's core flaw, other than his reluctance to be the Avatar, is his childlike impetuousness. He always acts before he thinks. He is young and impatient. Even though he wants to do what's right, his lack of forward thinking stops him from being able to do so a lot of the time. When he notices that the Northern Air Temple has changed significantly from when the monks were there, he immediately flies into a rage without considering the perspectives of others. This is a reasonable flaw and a common one considering his age, but it costs him multiple times in the series. Perhaps the most well-developed example of this is in episode 116, The Deserter, in which she tries to learn firebending for the first time. His teacher, Zhong, warns him about the dangers of firebending, but he does not listen. He doesn't respect the element, and because of that, he pays a terrible price. Zhong wants him to learn the element slowly and methodically, but Aang finds that boring. Zhong is far from a flawless person, but he is right when he says that Aang lacks discipline. Because of this, he burns the person he cares about the most, Katara, and swears to never firebend again. He is haunted by this failure for 2 seasons, so when he finally does overcome it, it is cathartic. I hope the Netflix series understands the importance of this arc. Number 1. The Storm. If you asked 10 Avatar fans what the best episode in Season 1 is, I'm willing to bet that over half of them would say The Storm. The Netflix Avatar series will face intense backlash if it A. doesn't include this episode at all, or B. tries to shove it into a fusion with another episode. Aang and Zuko are paralleled multiple times throughout the series, but this is the first time it happens, and it is the most revelatory. Until now, they have been presented as pure enemies, but this episode demonstrates the similarities between them. Both are driven by what happened to them. They struggle to move beyond the ghosts of their past, especially because they believe they are at fault for what happened to them. Aang ran away, was caught in a storm, and was trapped in an iceberg. Because of this, he could not help his people when the Fire Nation committed genocide on them. Similarly, Zuko yearns for his father's approval, which he lost when he spoke out of turn at a war meeting. The Zuko storyline is more compelling, but they are both fantastic, and the radiant glow of this episode is amplified by how intricately and elegantly structured it is. The focus is not on either story, but on the parallels between them. This becomes fully evident during the episode's best scene, in which Aang and Zuko stare at each other silently, not knowing how much they have in common. So thank you for watching. If you liked what you saw today, don't forget to like and comment and subscribe. Donate to my Patreon if you can and you want to see more content like this. Keep watching Avatar. It is a fantastic show. Watch the new Avatar when it comes out, and tune in soon for the next Avatar Explained video. It will be coming soon, I promise you that. Thank you all again. Adios, comrades.